A Saturday night fixture which has turned millions into armchair dance fans. But Strictly Come Dancing has also done something else, revealed just how many professional ballroom dancers these days are Russian, not just in the UK, but in other shows and competitions round the world. Gleb Savchenko, new to this year's Strictly lineup, is the latest Russian to make the headlines.
We have a very good, strong school in Russia. It calls the Russian Club. And most of the dancers who you can see now across the world competing and winning a lot of competitions and becoming world champions, they all came from that club.
It's a prominence which is all the more surprising when throughout much of the 20th century, ballroom dancing in Soviet Russia was frowned upon as too Tsarist or too Western. As another Strictly veteran, Kristina Ryanov recalls from early dancing days.
We had cha-cha, waltz and foxtrot, but we didn't have other dances like samba from Brazil, Argentine tango. We didn't have lots of other swing dances and jive, which is obviously American dances. So now I kind of think, okay, maybe because it was the Cold War time, they didn't allow those dances yet.
Glitz and sequins, mirror balls and microphones, the glamour of Strictly couldn't be further from the grey Soviet world Kristina Ryanov grew up in the remote Far East corner of the Soviet Empire, Vladivostok.
I was only 6 when I started dancing, and obviously it was Soviet Union time, but in socialistic Russia all children were pushed and I would say groomed almost to really be the best as we can be at any activities we took. We always were pushed to do some activities after school, so nobody wandered around on the streets. And obviously, yes, you were sort of raised with the ideology you have to be the best at what the best, deliver in your class, deliver for your school, for your nation, for your country, and all of that.
This was Vladivostok, which is in the very far east of Russia.
Yeah.
And it's a time when life was pretty tough. People lived in quite difficult conditions. Did it feel like a huge contrast to go and dance?
Yes, of course it was glamorous. I was putting my gorgeous dresses on and a little bit of lip gloss, and my mom would curl my hair, and it was a really massive thing for me. You're on stage with lights and everything. So yeah, of course it was an escape.
Where did you think it would take you? What was your dream at that time?
I definitely loved competing, and I felt like I was good at it, and I wanted to continue being in that environment because, like you said, it was definitely an escape. The older you get, the more you understand the life around. So I think a lot of kids were actually quite envious of me that my mom and dad would take me to different competitions around our area, and dance teachers would take us to different towns around my city.
How far did you go? How far did you travel?
We would have maybe a bus ride about 3-4 hours to the closest city to compete. The one good thing about Soviet Union was that everything was taken care of by government. All of our travels, our fees for dance lessons, everything was paid out to our teachers by governments, because my mom and dad would never able to afford take me to classes.
It wasn't till the late 1950s, after Stalin's death, that ballroom dancing was tolerated at all by the Soviet state. And even then, it was dismissed as a marginal activity, far less important than Russian folk dancing or ballet, kept going by devoted teachers who inspired those they taught. A little older than Kristina, former Soviet Union and Russian national champion Talyat Tarsinov was more aware of the political restrictions. He began his dance career in the 1970s in another remote part of the former Soviet Empire, the Republic of Tajikistan.
The government was very much against of ballroom dancing. And what they did, they actually did everything possible to kill that idea, to develop it in Russia. We've been not allowed to watch any programs like Come Dancing because it was a vast influence what Soviet Union was terribly afraid. That's why all obstacles for us no competitions. We've been really doing most of things very quietly, so nobody will see. And we've been lucky that we've been very far from Moscow, in this little town of middle of nowhere, so we got less problems. But in the other places, I have to tell you, people was getting to the jail for just to promote ballroom dancing. Yes, it's true. They didn't want to expose us to any West cultures. I mean, we listened only music they will allowed us. We watched movies only they allowed us. We read books only when they've been available for us. Everything else was absolutely illegal.
Talyet's wife Marina, also a national champion, was born in the Urals, Soviet Russia's industrial belt. Even finding out about dancing steps was a struggle. She remembers the excitement when a rare, smuggled film appeared from that hallowed mecca of ballroom, Blackpool.
At some point, we got the 16 millimeters movie, black and white, no sound, obviously, of ballroom dance competition in England. And we were so happy, so we can see actual dancing and we can, learn something, seeing it actually. Seeing the style, seeing the costumes, the hair, the dancing, everything. So obviously we didn't have the machine to watch it. We needed to find somebody who will show it to us. And I talked to the science teacher at my school because we had the machine in the class. So he did put it on and we were watching it and we even learned something from this tape. But then we realized we learned everything backward because he put it wrong. So we got couple moves, but it was backward.
Another veteran dancer, now honorary president of the International Dance Union and former Russian Grand Prix champion Leonid Pletnev, remembers that some Soviet officials who saw ballroom contests as too bourgeois and not proletarian enough would try to close them down.
It was difficult and it was really hidden. I even was involved in a competition. It was run at night, not like a night competition, because it was forbidden to be run for some reasons.
Secret ballroom
Secret,
dancing.
exactly. It was run in the House of Culture where all curtains was closed, if no lights been outside, with a very, very low level of music. It was really a spy story how we get to this House of Culture from place where we've been lived in secret. We were sitting in the bus. Again, all curtains was closed. 2 hours we were driving in the city watching are there any tails behind us. Then bus come door to door. We was run inside. We're like, we are agents from this contra-propaganda.
So when would that be?
I will tell you, it was beginning of 82, probably.
Quite late.
Yeah.
They really called you agents?
Yes, we used to have some dance leaders of industry, and this particular one, I'm not going to mention his name, he was providing these ideas of Soviet ballroom dancing, yeah? So he is actually put it in contra, the Western ballroom dancing and the Soviet ballroom dancing, yeah? So for his ideas, this was really like we are agents from propaganda. But thanks God, again, we used to have some clever people, dance teachers or dance leaders at that time, to be able to talk to our politicians, at least at the beginning a little bit, and then more and more, and finally perestroika was also a development of country's life.
The Soviet era was over by the time Gleb Savchenko started dancing in Moscow at the age of 8. It was the 1990s and communist rule had been outlawed, and the new Russia of private enterprise and raw capitalism meant rampant inflation and high unemployment. To fund Gleb's lessons and costumes, his entire family had to pitch in.
I didn't have special clothes until probably I was like 13 or something, or 12. My mom would make me like trousers, and she had her own black trousers. And the material was super light. And she was like, oh, this is great. You're going to just dance in them. No one's going to have that kind of trousers. And I used to compete in them. It was crazy. When I looked the videos back, it was amazing. But everyone was sort of like around us, supported. Like, my grandparents from father's side and mother's side helped. My uncle helped a lot, like, to our family, and, with lessons and, everything, and paying for it. Yeah. Everyone was just supporting and, helping.
Family enterprise then.
Exactly.
What did your friends at school think? They didn't think it was, the word in English is sissy, for a boy to do something like dancing?
I didn't care, I just loved it. So, yeah, of course, like, the boys would tease me and, and dance or whatever. But I remember at the end of the year in school, or I think it was in class 6 or 5, we had a performance. Like, everyone had to do something, someone would, like, sing a song or act or, like, play a scene. And I took my partner and we danced, on stage. And I remember everyone were, like, shocked. And everyone were like, wow, you can do that. Like, this is crazy. This is amazing. And I was like kind of a, a school hero or whatever.
In Vladivostok, the wild post-Soviet 1990s were particularly chaotic. For Christina, ballroom dancing was not just a haven from lawlessness, it was a means of survival.
It was a really rough time for everyone. I think it was, like the country was at war, just without bombing. It was very tough times, very gloomy, very difficult time. We kind of called lost generation because we grew up with one mentality and one ism, like communism and socialism. But when it all collapsed, nothing came to replace it. So let's say for me, because I was in that sort of environment of sport and competitions, even it was really tough on the outside, I had an outlet to go and do my competitions and study dancing and so on. Unfortunately for my friends, it was quite difficult. Lots of them went to, gangs and being groomed to do crime and everything, and maybe drugs. It was awful time, I must say. My parents struggled because they both lost jobs. And eventually I started teaching, and when I was very young, I started assisting my dance teacher. So I think at that time I understood actually I can survive by doing what I love.